your film Drowned Out,
We are, yeah.
which hopefully people would have seen by now until they get
If they're watching the DVD extras, I usually watch the extras first myself though.
That's kind of perverse.
No, that's kind of filmmakery, I think.
Really? So the filmmakery mindset, when did it hit you first?
Well, it never actually hit me in that sense, because I never went into it thinking, I want to be a filmmaker, this is what I want to do with my life. I want the red carpets, I want the premieres. Obviously I've got that now, but it wasn't originally
I've seen your bed.
Yes.
I know this to be true. Yeah.
That wasn't actually originally what I wanted. I just stumbled into it, because basically I heard about the McLibel story, McLibel being my other film that I made before Drowned Out. I just heard the story, and I just heard that is the best story I've ever heard.
Well, for people who don't know what McLibel is there
explain anybody left in the world who doesn't
I
know?
believe there may be, Franny.
One or two.
There may be, so you might have to explain it.
Basically, McDonald's, they sell hamburgers. They sued two people who were giving out leaflets criticising everything about the company, and McDonald's sued them for libel. But McDonald's has sued many, many, many people for libel. And the theory is, or the practice, what happens is, you sue somebody, you're a big multinational corporation, you sue somebody for libel, they can't afford to go to court, so they go, sorry, we didn't mean it, apologise in court, and retract whatever it was they said. And never ever does anybody find out whether what they said was true or not. Then, unfortunately for McDonald's, they sued these two people, Helen Steele, Dave Morris, and they said, no way are we apologising to McDonald's. What we said was true, or we believe it to be true, so we're going to fight in court. And then it turned into the longest court trial ever in English history, and they defended themselves. But I did it because I loved the story so much, and I knew that it wasn't getting out. And because I'd always cared about these issues like environmental issues, animal rights, human rights, workers' rights, advertising to children, multinational corporations, freedom of speech, and it had them all, but in this one really brilliant package with this human story at the centre of it, which is David and Goliath.
What are we doing? We're staying all day.
People normally say, look, I'm going to make a film, I want to make it the best film, but I want to make sure that I'm going to get fully recompensed for it.
Right.
And I'll be able to afford the things that I really like in life.
And what do we really like in life then?
Well, you tell me. I'm interested to know what you really like.
Well, I
in
don't
life.
particularly like money. Is that true? It's not my motivating force, no. See, I never had any of these, discussions with myself at all, really. I just heard the story and I just got obsessed with it from day one, and I just thought, that's it, I'm doing it. And then as soon as I started on the filmmaking process, because basically I knew nothing about it, but my dad, luckily, handily had a TV production company because he used to work for the BBC, and so I just said, can I borrow your camera for 6 months? And he said, yeah, fine. And then I knew loads of people who were cameramen and all the rest of it, and I just said to them, we're doing this story, we've got absolutely no money, do you want to help? And they all said yes.
Isn't it a fact of life that virtually every main street has a great amount of McDonald's packaging?
No, it is not a fact of life.
Dozens, if not hundreds of items.
Not a fact of life. I walked through Paddington this morning. I found one McDonald's package which I disposed of. So I think that is a gross overstatement.
There were two on Waterloo Bridge this morning, but I didn't dispose of them, I'm afraid.
I would have done.
It was brilliant learning how to make films, which I've never done. It was fantastic watching Helen and Dave and the struggle they went through and how they kept going all the time and stuff. And so I didn't get paid, but it was the most enriching experience of my life.
And what happened to the film? Do you think the film really made a difference?
Well, we did calculate the other day with our new website that 40 million people in 26 countries have now seen all our films, of which McLibel is probably about 18 million, something like that. So that's a hell of a lot more than a BBC documentary anyway, And the main reason for that is, I think, is that if you make it independently, on your own with no money, then the copyright belongs to you. Because if the BBC had commissioned me all that time ago, they would have shown it once or twice, and I would have got paid. And then they may have tried to sell it internationally, or they may not have bothered. And basically that's the end of it. But if it belongs to you or to me, usually it belongs to me, then you can do with it whatever you want. And so we give it away to cable channels all over the world. For example, we sold it to this cable channel called WorldLink in America, and they only paid us $2,000, which if you ask the BBC, that is not a normal, but 3 million people watched it, you know what I mean? And that's what's important to me.
Was that the same thinking then behind Drowned Out? The same thing, that it was an idea that grabbed you?
Well, I think it was the same non-thinking, really.
Right.
It's not really a thinking process, it's more like...
Well, tell me when you first heard the story and when it first actually reached you, touched you.
Well, I basically finished McLibel in '97, and then I had a 2-year fallow period when I was trying to promote McLibel, which was very hard work, and because the BBC bought it and then they dropped it, and then Channel 4, and it was all, and it was all very soul-destroying. And I basically thought, I'm never ever going to care as much about anything again in my life as I cared about that story. And then I was on the train one day, this is a true story, and we were going down to Cornwall to see the solar eclipse of '99, I don't know if you remember that. And I was reading, I was on the train and I was bored, and I was reading the Guardian newspaper over somebody's shoulder, and there was a headline that said, "Villagers in the shadow of the dam prepare to drown." And I just thought, what the fuck's that, basically? Bought the Guardian, read the article, and it was the Narmada Dam, which obviously I'd heard of, but I don't know about you, but I've always found dams extremely dry subject.
That's very good. Comedy and conscience. I like the way you marry those two together.
But it just had a bit of a geography textbook ring about it. I knew it was a big environmental issue and I should care about it, but I could never quite be bothered to know about it. And then when I heard that these people, their situation was so bad that they'd chosen the option to drown, that was my human story. So then I called up my friend who accidentally had become a multi-millionaire through a web company at the time. It was .com era. And he lent me £1,000 and I bought 2 tickets to India, me and my sister, who's quite handy on the camera, because I couldn't find a professional camera person at that short notice. And we just headed out to India. And we went straight down to, the place where we'd heard that the people were standing in the water. We knew absolutely nothing whatsoever.
You didn't know the language, you didn't know the country,
No.
you didn't know where you were going, how you were going to do it.
No.
At any time, fear and doubt, I would think, are your 2 companions on a journey like that.
They were my constant companions, yes. Loneliness, boredom, hunger, frustration. Anyway, basically, we were headed down there. 2 aeroplanes, 1 train, many, many rickshaws, 3 buses, 1 because we got going the wrong way and we had to go the other way, 8-mile walk, a motorbike ride, and a boat. And then we got to the village. And because the headline had been in the paper, it was right at the time, the water was rising. And I just headed straight into the water, stupidly, with my camera batteries in my pockets.
Yeah,
that wasn't good.
Technical tip
Technical
you might
hits.
want to give
Yes,
to
yes.
people who want to make films.
Right,
it's not a good thing to do.
No.
No.
Also my passport, which I ruined. And headed straight into the water, and we're filming them, and these people were preparing to drown, without question. And over the course of the next few hours, the water was rising really fast. And then my sister, who was with me, we heard that the police were coming, and so then she went off with all the tapes that we'd got so far. And she just disappeared on a boat, and I was like, and I had no idea what was going on. And the police came, arrested everybody, including myself. And
Well, what did they make of you, in the midst of their deep desperation? You descend from nowhere.
Yeah, we did. But what we did, by complete and total fluke, but don't ever tell them, was that as my sister had gone off with the tapes, and she just rolled up in Delhi and managed to sell them to the main national TV station, Star TV, which is also syndicated to 53 other countries, and got it on the national news every hour, all that day and the next day. Because of that, loads of other people turned up at the protest. So by the time we'd been let out of jail the next day, loads of people had come because of us. And so they slightly thought, that we were,
Yeah.
these really brilliant people who could just get it on the news whenever we wanted, which we never did again, obviously. So that really endeared us to them.
जंगल हमारा, जमीन हमारा, नर्मदा हमारा, ये हक है हमारा. हक ने हमें बैठा कि कोई उधड़ी नहीं जाना रहा, हमें डूबे सो पण हटस ही नहीं. ऐसे बोल.
You formed some very strong links with some of the villagers, and you almost became family. So at that point, you kind of crossed the line between documentary maker and voyeur of what's going on, reporter of what's going on, and you actually become much more involved, don't you?
Well, you have to. I mean, the way the village is set up, it's not as though we could stay in the hotel. What hotel? What electricity? What road? What shop? You can't even provide your own food. So, you have to take food from the villagers. Sounds bad, but I mean, they offered us.